Well, welcome back to you and welcome back to me. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, host of the Today Show. Have been on a little bit of an absence and getting geared up for season two. Season two coming up. I always count my seasons every 4 months. That's kind of been my tradition. Every 4 months of broadcasting. So it's been May, June, July, August. Now we're into September. So season two coming up in my world. And today, of course, is Wellness Wednesday. And I decided to do a solo show to start off our new season. So thank you so much, everybody. I just want to take a few minutes to express my gratitude to the Disability Channel, Your Home TV, Kathy Bell, all the people behind the scenes, our esteemed leader, Jay Stoyan, um, our sponsors, people who have supported us tremendously by either coming on the show, watching the show, sharing the show, because of course, as many platforms as we can get out there on, the more powerful the show and the more people hear the beautiful messages that come out from the Today Show. So let's see who has joined us already. And oh my goodness, welcome back, Kathy Bell. Welcome back, Dr. Laurie. Absolutely. And great to have you here, Kathy. So I just wanted to express my gratitude first and foremost for everything that's happened so far. And it's just getting more and more exciting. The amazing people that I've met. My co-hosts, Doug Smith, former NHLer, he and I do the press box every Tuesday. And Ramin Modiri, Dr. Ramin Modiri, who supports us on Tuesdays with our finance program. He'll be back for season two as well. And also Jill Younghusband, who supports our veterans broadcasts and who's been here in season one, and she'll be returning for season two. And love to have some of our guests come back, because when we meet a guest, we realize, oh my gosh, like we need another show, because people have so much information to share. So if you're somebody who has something to share, you have a story, you have a book, perhaps, you have a background that is in support of people at large. I always say that, I don't always say, I just know. People ask me sometimes, so what does it take to be a facilitator in your business? And I said, well, I only need one criteria, and the rest of it I can teach to you. And they'll say, well, what's that? And I'll say, well, you have to have a heart that works and that you actually care about yourself and you care about other people and their welfare. And then if you have that, then I can teach you everything else you need to know about the business and how to have a business, etc. But if you don't have that heart, that's very difficult to teach somebody. So what I have found by being here at the Disability Channel is everybody here has heart, right? And I'm so proud too, because I see she's just landed here, and I would have been remiss in that I'm quite sure she'll be back for season two. But on Mondays, we do empowerment, self-care with my co-host, Virginia Clark. And without these people, without these heart-filled people, this would never happen. This would never be. And it's interesting because the guests we've attracted in season one are those kind of people also. So if you have a heart and you have a big heart, this is a good place for you to land. On Monday, I was away. I was in Edmonton, and I was called in by a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. And she asked me if I would consider doing an interview with a family. And if you haven't watched that show, please go into YouTube, Laurie Davis, and find it. It was not pre-scheduled, so people don't know about it. And I'm going to share it again here briefly to cap thumbnail sketch of the story of a niece and a wife of an elder, Dexter Adams, who passed away in the hospital, wanted to share their story, because what happened to Dexter, we don't ever want to have happen again. And Dexter is an elder. And he had nice long braids, not a gray hair in his head, First Nations elder. And one morning, his wife came into the hospital to visit, and someone had cut off his braids and put them in the garbage can on top of a soiled diaper. Can you imagine? And then he had bear grease that he used to slick his braids with, and it's a traditional medicine, and that was in the garbage. And she was devastated, and he was devastated, and he passed away not long after that, even though he did not have any life-threatening issues going on. But this person, this nurse from another culture, knew nothing about the culture that exists here for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, had no idea how sacred his hair was to him, and just decided that she didn't want to be taking care of it and cut it off. Like, who does that? Would you let anybody touch your hair without your permission? The family didn't give permission. He didn't give permission. And actually, the family took a before picture of him just for fun. He was in his bed, he had his peace sign up, and he was a big smile. And then after the braids were cut, they took another picture, and I couldn't believe it. So I had to do that interview on the spur of the moment, because that is what we face if we rely too much on healthcare and nursing care, and why we need to take responsibility for our own health and be an advocate. And that's the other thing in the healthcare system. You need to have an advocate. And if you don't have that voice for yourself, then you need someone else there who can do it. The family is devastated. They filed an informal complaint with the ombudsperson's office in Saskatoon, because they're originally from Saskatchewan. And that, to me, that shows a very big lack of insensitivity or a lack of cultural training. Because I relate a story myself. Years ago, I traveled to Taiwan on business to work with a psychiatrist and his professional mental health care staff. They were wonderful. But before I ever went to Taiwan, I studied the culture so that I wouldn't go over there and offend people with maybe saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. I mean, this is protocol. So I think when anybody moves to this country, they need to know that they can go back to their homeland. They can go back there. If they came from the Philippines or South Africa, or they can always go back home. But our Indigenous community, this is their home. They were here first, before my ancestors ever got here. This is their home. So it brought up for me some things around us educating ourselves about the Indigenous community, the traditions, the culture, because we're actually living in their country. And we came here after they were here. So we were immigrants. And I think it's important that when you go to somebody else's country, you learn the culture. That's sometimes why we love to travel, so we can go and learn that culture. Isn't that true? But if you can go into YouTube and you can read, then there's no excuse for us not to understand the culture here. And when we came, our ancestors came, they brought their cultures with them. And then we tried to get rid of the original people that were here. And it's still going on with these kinds of behaviors and acts. So I think that's an appropriate opening for our first show of our season 2 on Wellness Wednesday. And the dysfunction that surrounded that act actually caused somebody their life, because you could see it in his eyes and his face, it killed his spirit. So, what is the meaning of the hair to First Nations people? Well, hair was always a very sacred thing. And as a matter of fact, when Dexter brushed his hair, he never took the hair out of the hairbrush and threw it in the garbage. He had a big jar that he put it in. And of course, as a youngster, he was a member of the day school system where the First Nations children were sent to be assimilated to kill the Indian in the child. And so the first thing that happened to them was their hair was cut off or shaved. And so Dexter had been one of those kids. So you can imagine as an adult, growing his hair out and having the freedom to do that was very sacred. And you don't ever touch somebody's hair or head, anybody. I mean, okay, look at it this way. If you were in an accident and you had a big cut here, do they shave your head or do they just shave that space around the cut? And that's in any of our cultures. Can you imagine going into the hospital and some nurse who doesn't know how to cut hair starts cutting your hair? Like, really? And that is reflective of the fact that she didn't want to do the work to take care of it, to brush it. So what the family did, because it was becoming matted and everything, what they did, they had a family member gave Dexter 2 nice French braids. So the top part, the braids were attached. You know what I mean by a French braid? And that still wasn't good enough. I could go on all day about this. It just broke my heart. Because I do understand the culture. And I spent time in the culture. Many, many years learning the culture. And I just didn't get it. But I interviewed the family. So if you didn't see that show, go into YouTube, Laurie Davis show host. It's there. And I interviewed the niece and I interviewed the wife. And Dexter also had an eagle feather with him because that's also very traditional. And that was mishandled because they didn't even know what it was. Really? Well, there's no excuse for ignorance. And I would encourage all of you to start educating yourself about the Indigenous people in this country were here first. This is their country. We came in and were accepted. And then we mistreated. So I'm not responsible for what my ancestors chose to do. However, that's why I feel very passionate about being part of the solution. So as a result of that, I'm going to be doing some more of those kinds of interviews and getting that word out there about how we need to wake up and be part of the solution to all of the problems and issues that exist now amongst our Indigenous people. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of spending time with a beautiful woman, and she's going to be on the show tomorrow. And she's worked way up north in Inuvik. Wow. And I met her on Friday because on Friday was the funeral of a very good friend of mine, and you've all met him, Chief Leonard Standing on the Road. And on Friday, he had to bury his girl, his daughter. And I met Jessica there. It's amazing how the Creator lines us up. And again, a devastating thing to have to bury your children. But that's going on too, a lot more than we want. So we need to band together and make things happen to change some of the things that are going on. All right. Well, that's the opening to season 2. We've got a huge season 2 lined up. Doug and I have some amazing guests coming in. Next Thursday, we have 2 veterans coming in again. And Monday, we'll be here with Virginia. Excuse me. And so we're planning an exciting season 2 as the show expands and grows. And again, I want to express my gratitude for anybody and everybody who has supported that, either by watching the show, sharing the show, producing the show, and giving us the support we need to get out there. So we'll be right back after these 30 seconds, which will also be bringing us some sponsors and advertisers in season 2, now that season 1 is well established and the foundation is there. So we'll be back right after this message of snowflakes floating up north. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, and you're listening to the Today Show here on the Disability Channel. And we're launching season 2. And how much fun is that to be able to say, hey, they liked us. We're back. We can stay for another season. Because that's what it's like in the media industry. You know, you may be here and you may not be here. So really appreciate the opportunity to be back for season 2. And today is Wellness Wednesday, and I shared a beautiful story to start off the show. But I wanted to propose the notion that, and I believe Virginia and I will expand on this on Monday. She doesn't know that yet, but she's here today, so she's listening and watching. And yes, Virginia, we're going to talk about this on Monday. That our level of wellness, a lot of it is tied up in our decisions we make. And we can decide to be well, or we can decide to be sick. Believe it or not, it's a very subconscious decision that we're making. And one of the underlying foundations of wellness, and I know Virginia will, she says, hey, that sounds good. So this is a heads up, Virginia, for Monday, because of your beautiful recovery and situation. But there has to be a part of us that knows that we deserve to be well. And I'm always telling people who have wellness products, so if you're selling vitamins or you've got alternative healthcare systems in place, or, all of our service providers, like our massage therapists and our chiropractors, and if people don't think they deserve to be well, they're not going to even bother buying your vitamins or coming to see you, or doing those things that are necessary to stay well. But that, to me, is a self-worth issue, because that level of deserving to be well is critical in our recovery if we do get sick. And I know that that has been critical for me in my lifetime. It's exactly 2 years ago this month, I was told I had cancer. Actually, I was told in May that I had cancer. It was in September that I had my surgery. And I went there knowing that I was going to be all right. That have a hysterectomy. It was before stage 1 even. Clean it out, get rid of it. I never took a painkiller. I never took, even though they prescribed those, I might have taken one, I think. And I did not take treatments or anything like that, because they were successfully able to see that it was all removed from the lymph nodes and everything, or that there wasn't any cancer there, actually. So, but you see a lot of that, and I went all by myself. It was just on the back end of COVID. And I didn't want my husband there because he's elderly, and I didn't want him to be exposed to the COVID. And so I just went, and I didn't even blink an eye, because there's a part of me that knew. I paid attention. As soon as there was a sign that there was something wrong, I immediately took care of it. But some people, they go, oh, well, that's just a little blood. It's okay. Or, oh, and I don't mean that we should be running to the doctor all the time, but when it's something severe like that, unnatural, if I'm sure, women feel those lumps in their breasts and they get to the doctor, and if they don't, they're in trouble. So I'm not saying you don't go to your doctor, but you're not hypochondriac and every little pain, little cut and whatever you run to the doctor. So deserving to be well is part of our self-worth growth. And I know Virginia will be able to be more explicit about that as she shares some more of her story on Monday. But we must take responsibility for our health. So we don't land in the hospital and have something drastic like that happened to Dexter at the hands of people who maybe are tired, overworked. And this is not to be disrespectful to our healthcare staff. I don't know how they do it. I couldn't do it. Imagine the stress in emergency, people coming. I don't even know. It takes a very special person to be that. So it's not to be disrespectful to them, but also to recognize that our healthcare system is under a lot of duress, especially not only during COVID, but after COVID. And my friend, Doug Smith, told me that the trajectory of the mental health impact of COVID is not going to peak until March of 2025. In other words, it's climbing every day. More suicides, more heart attacks, more cancer, more of everything. And the pressure that that's putting on the systems is overwhelming. Some years ago, my husband had a stroke, a massive stroke, and we were in the doctor's office with him after the fact. He's fine. He recovered, but that's because I and he did the recovery. I did not send him to a rehab center. That's another story. But anyway, we were talking about that, and we were in the doctor's office, and the budget for the province of Alberta 10 years ago was $40 million a day. The province of Alberta 10 years ago. So what would it be today? That's what it's costing the province in healthcare services. 40 million plus a day. So to me, that says, wow, there's a lot of people going to the doctor and going to the hospital. Another statistic I can give you for my own province, which I'm not really proud of, but in the run of a day, I'm just thinking, that's why my eyes are up here. 15 to 25-year-olds who have tried to take their life in the last 24 hours are in emergency right now. And those cases are larger than the numbers that come into emergency with heart attacks, car accidents, stroke, an injury. Emergency is working more. They have more patients coming in over attempted suicide than they have. When you add up everything else altogether, the attempted suicides override them. See, we need to not be walking around unaware. We need to know these things, because I'm not going to waste emergencies time over something insignificant when I know there are people who need it worse than I do. But at the same time, yes, stay healthy. At the same time, we must engage in self-care. And self-care is about taking care of ourselves and knowing we deserve that. So I spent the last 2 days at a resort, River Cree. I'll put a plug in for them. Great place, great business. The River Cree Casino and Hotel. They do a lot of good with their money that they make. It's on native land. It belongs to the Enoch Cree Nation, not too far from here. And a busload of elders came in from another community for a little 3-day getaway. And they do this a lot in the communities to get people out of their community, have some fun. And those elders were there. It was amazing. But I saw more walkers than I've seen in a year, and canes, and people that I would say are not really very well or healthy in some ways. And it just reminded me that of Clint Eastwood. Now, you all know who Clint Eastwood is, right? And Clint Eastwood said, somebody asked him, "You're 94 and you're still making movies? Like, are you going to retire?" And he said, "I will never let the old man in. I'm an old man, but I won't let the old man inside of me." I think that's just like very good advice. So I've decided I'm not letting the old girl in. So a lot of these elders were younger than I am, way younger. But then that gives you an example of the lifestyle and perhaps the malnutrition at an early age when there wasn't the food that wasn't there. There's lots of reasons for us to get sick, and stress is a big one. Even, that's the biggest one of all. So I know from personal experience with myself and my spouse and my family that I was even talking to my mom yesterday. She's 90, she'll be 92 in November. And I said, "Mom, I don't feel 75 inside." And she said, "Well, I don't feel 92 either." And I went, wow. She had a garden this year. She lives by herself. She takes care of herself. She has a little she has a housekeeper that comes in and they have lunch together and things like that. She has support, but at the same time, she's on her own. And I want to grow up and be just like that. But she's always taken very good care of herself. And my dad, he lived to be 93, he had throat cancer when he was 67. He didn't die till he was 93. And Virginia, good point. We can talk about this in detail on Monday, how the trauma that we experienced as children is in our body as well, because our cells have memory. People say, "Oh, I dealt with that. I'm good." No, you're not. Because what did you do to heal from that? And if we don't heal from something, we can't really deal with it. We have to heal it first. So I know that self-esteem is a matter of life or death. Perfect example, my first husband. He used to say to me, and I was thinking about this the other day, because it was in September. September is a significant month for me. September 1986, he disappeared. He's been on a missing persons list since 1986. But in 1984, he tried taking his life twice in 1 week. And he used to say to me, "Laurie, I don't deserve you." Well, I didn't know then what I know now. Because if that was today, that would have told me, here's a boy, a man, because I knew him when he was a boy, with no self-worth. Some people think they don't even deserve to be here, or they don't deserve to be recognized, or they don't deserve to be supported. That's low self-worth or no self-worth. It's the root of everything. And I know that as sure as I'm sitting in this chair because of my experiences, not out of a textbook. As a matter of fact, when I started my quest of learning more about self-worth, I couldn't find anything that had ever been written about it. Not a paper, not a book, nothing. But I knew there was a part of me that knew that was at the bottom of everything, and it was going to take me the next 30 years to prove my theory, which I've already done many times over. All right. So we're going to take a little 30-second break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about some dysfunctional behaviors that might be keeping you from being really well. We'll be right back. right. Well, here are some welcome backs. Welcome backs. I meant to say welcome back to Wellness Wednesday. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, and we're here on the Today Show with the Disability Channel. And today we're talking about wellness, staying well, and knowing that you deserve to be well. But here are some little myth busters I want to share. You know how people will say, oh, I'm going to die of a heart attack anyway because it's in the family. I don't know about that. I'm going to have cancer because cancer's in the family. That might be a higher propensity, if you will, but it's not really a belief system that I wanted to participate in. And they've proven that just because you come from people who've lived to be old, like, my dad was 93, my mom is 92, my grandma was 100 almost, that doesn't mean anything as far as your longevity. People think, well, people in my family live to be old, so I'm going to live to be old. No. It is all going to be connected to whether or not you decide that you deserve to be healthy. And healing your trauma and getting rid of those belief systems that no longer support us. So what are some dysfunctional belief systems or behaviors that can keep us from actually staying well? Well, one of them is buying into those old beliefs that don't really mean much. And there's no scientific basis to it or anything. It's all about us deciding lifestyle choices. So here are a few things that you might not think are connected to your health, but they are. And no doctor is ever going to sit you down and say, well, you know what? If you don't stop finding fault with people, you're going to continue to be sick. But I'm saying it because that's one of the dysfunctional behaviors, finding fault. And even the other day when I did that show, I said, we're not blaming anybody in the healthcare system. We want to bring a solution so that it never happens again. So if we're busy finding fault first of all, with ourselves, think about that. How many times have you found fault with yourself? You've said something negative to yourself. I'm too fat. I'm too thin. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. Believe it or not, that does not support your well-being. As a matter of fact, it starts to convince yourself that you probably aren't any of those things. So fault finding can lead to, because that creates stress, finding fault instead of looking in the mirror and saying, hey, gorgeous, how you doing today? Whose cage are you going to rattle today? I hope I'm rattling your cage right now because that's my goal. In all of my broadcasts, I like to help people wake up. Nobody ever thought that finding fault, it had something to do with your health. Yes, it does. Definitely a lack of self-care. So I'm not getting my rest. I'm not eating properly. I'm not going out for a walk. I'm not drinking my water. I'm not basics. Basics. A lack of self-care. I'm smoking too much. I'm drinking too much. I'm obsessed with the internet. All of these addictions, drugs, these are all things, sex, that contribute to a lack of self-care. And have I done any of those? Yes. But after a while, you wake up and you go, whoops, better not be doing that anymore. So I actually had a conversation with my husband, Ron, last night about this because we were talking and relaxing and having a drink. And I said to him, why do you think we're so as healthy as we could possibly be at our age? He'll be 83 this month. And he said, because we get our rest, we eat properly, We have to go for walks because we have a dog we have to take out. And he had just looked after the dog for 2 days, so he knew that one well. And he said, we keep the stress down. I went, wow, we keep this up, we're going to be living to be 100. And he said, probably. Like it was a no-brainer. So self-care, because that's the one thing no one else can do for us. No one else can go to the bathroom for us. No one else can sleep for us. No one else can eat for us. There are things that we have to do for ourselves. That's called taking responsibility. But if there's a piece of me that doesn't think I deserve to be well, then I'm going to chop down the chocolate bars and eat the chips and drink the booze and stay up all night playing games and obsessing. There's another one that creates stress. All right. Another one is lying to ourselves. Lying to ourselves. Oh, one more chocolate bar, one more drink, one more. Oh, it's all right. It won't do any harm. It's just for today. It's just one more. I don't feel like going to bed tonight. I'm not going to sleep. One night's sleep won't kill me. And we tell ourselves this stuff. I did. I still do sometimes. And then I go, wait a minute. You're lying. You're a liar, Laurie. That's not true. So lying to ourselves about our situation. Like when I realized I had that bleed out and it wasn't normal, I could have lied to myself and said it was nothing. So how many people are in denial about their condition or what they need to do to take care of themselves? We're in denial. Oh, I'm good. I'm happy. No. I challenge that. Another one is unforgiveness. And I have lots of personal experience around that. Not being able to let myself off the hook for the mistakes I've made, harboring bitterness, resentment, not forgiving others. This all leads to unhealthiness. As a matter of fact, that's what actually killed my first husband, because he wasn't able to forgive himself for certain things that had taken place. And he grew to hate who he is and who he was to a point where he didn't want to be here anymore. That's a big one. I could talk for a week on that alone, how that prevents us from staying well. So when I make a mistake, because I make mistakes every day, I immediately acknowledge it, take responsibility for it. If it involves another person, I have to take responsibility and then let it go. Like Frozen, let it go. Because that kind of crap in your body, like Virginia said, the trauma is attached to that. Yeah, no, that's emotional wellness. I don't like the word emotional intelligence. I don't think it has anything to do with being smart. I think it has everything to do with being healed. So emotional wellness. Another one is taking offense. Oh, this was big for me. It was, I think, my last hurdle, really, and it took years because I'm pretty sensitive and I can be hurt easily. And that would be because of my traumas and how I had those traumas stored in there still. And somebody would say something to me and I'd get offended. And then I'd have to get really defensive and try to explain myself. I did that for years. But when I gave that up, not being offended anymore, which wasn't that long ago, it changed everything for me. I felt better. I wasn't angry anymore. I was able to make better decisions. That's a big one. Better decisions about my health, my life, my situations. So, not taking offense. Imagine these things can lead to health, good health. Taking care, let's do the opposites. taking care of yourself, meeting all your basic needs, making sure you're safe. As a matter of fact, that's something else that came up in our conversation last night, because to me right now as seniors, our safety is number one and our health is right there next door to it. But safety, people are breaking into seniors' homes and stealing their purses and beating them up. Like, what kind of a world are we in? But that's the kind of world we're in, and we can't be in denial about that. So that's important to stay safe. So staying safe, not finding fault, looking for what's wrong. Instead of looking for what's wrong, let's look for what's right. What's right about me? What's right about the world? What is right about my situation? Stop lying. Stop enabling. I always explain the difference between support and enabling. Enabling is kind of like lying, but I'll give a little story. Let's say there's a teenager and he's on drugs and his parents have cut him off from money and such. And he goes to Granny and he says to Granny, I don't have any money. I want to go down to the store and get a snack. And Granny digs into her purse and gives him a bunch of money. And of course, he goes and buys drugs. That's called enabling. Because Granny knows he's on drugs. She's not a stupid woman. You see? So enabling is when we allow a bad behavior to persist. And that doesn't really help people. Support is like just pushing the envelope a little bit and say, wait a minute here. So whether it's your parents or your siblings or your kids or your colleagues, I'll support. I prefer supporting than enabling. And I do that usually by just asking a question. Are you listening to yourself? Do you really believe that? Is that really your truth? And just helping people to think about what they're enabling. All right. Another behavior that can lead to poor health is arrogance. That's our ego. Arrogance. I'm not going to emergency, or I'm not going to the hospital, or I'm not going to that massage therapist, and I'm not going to that, get those beautiful products that might eliminate my arthritis. I'm not going there because I know my body better than anybody, and I'm just going to suffer. That's arrogance. I'm good. I can take care of it. No, some things we can't take care of. We need help. But the arrogance doesn't allow us to ask for the help we need. So that can lead to a crisis, health-wise. If you're going to be arrogant about it and think we know everything, we don't know everything. We know some things, but we don't know everything. And if it's something you don't know about, we better get help. So that's the arrogance. And that's a dysfunctional behavior. These things are all dysfunctional. Let's see. I have a couple of more here. No motivation. If I can't get up in the morning and put my 2 feet on the ground and make my bed, where's the motivation for the rest of the day? There is none. Sometimes I don't make my bed if I'm in a particular hurry, but I timed myself one day. It takes me about 68 seconds to make my bed. Less than 2 minutes. See, when you look at some of these things, when we say, I don't have time, I didn't have time to go for my walk, I didn't have time, making excuses. And that leads to procrastination and no motivation. Motivation comes when we do something and it feels good and then we want to do more. But some people aren't even motivated to get out of bed in the morning. Well, that's pretty unhealthy, don't you think? Even when I was recovering from my cancer, I'd get up at least. I didn't always get dressed, but when I did get dressed, I noticed a change in the way I felt. So that leads to good health, back to self-care, back to self-care. All right, well, we're going to take a little break. Those are just some dysfunctional behaviors that I know can lead to poor health. So, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. I was awarded an honorary doctorate in humanitarianism because of the work I've already done. So I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not a psychologist, and I chose not to be either of those things. But I know my own life and what I've had to experience. That's my credibility. And that's why I'm saying I've done these things. I've taken offense. I have found fault. I have lacked, I've not taken care of myself. There are times when I had no motivation. I've enabled. I've lied. I've been unforgiving. I've been arrogant. And they all lead to poor health, if not physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We'll be right back. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Welcome back, everyone. And I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, and this is the Today Show here on the Disability Channel. And today we're talking about staying healthy and what kind of factors are affecting our health and how we can engage in some different things to stay healthier. And these are things that you may not think about, because we can think of the obvious things, eating, resting, all that. But it's some of these emotional and psychological underlying beliefs that keep us from getting well. And the most important one is that I deserve to be well. And I would take that on as an affirmation, stick it on your fridge. I deserve to be healthy, because our body is quite the instrument. It's an amazing thing, what it can endure and how it can function, even when we don't give it what it needs. It'll compensate. It'll, retrace. When Ron had his stroke, the thing that happens, you have brain damage now. So you have to learn how to stay functional, but just doing it a little different way. The body will compensate. And it's amazing. But let's not try to work it so hard, because it has a lot of, I look at my feet, I take good care of my feet. And the reason I do that is because my feet have carried this body around for 75 years and has done a great job. And I don't have any foot and leg issues or anything like that because I've taken care of my feet. Regular pedicures, reflexology. It's called prevention, doing things to prevent. And of course, we are going to have the beautiful Dr. Patricia Crane coming on to join us. Let's see. I have the date here. On the 16th of September. And that's our day, Virginia. She's going to be joining us on the 16th because she's a master coach with the Louise Hay organization. And she's going to share with us some affirmations and so on around, if you don't have this book, you need to get this book. You can heal your life. If you've never heard of Louise Hay, you just go to hayhouse.com. And in the back, Louise has a dictionary. She was the first person to say, hey, if we have something wrong with us, I bet there's an emotional root to that. And people thought she was crazy. We're back in the 70s, but Louise Hay had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and healed herself back in the day. And she lived to be 93. She just passed away here a couple of years ago now. But in the back are all these ailments. And this is one of our favorite books. Virginia has it too. So let's say addictions, addictions. Addictions are a reaction to an unhealed trauma. And Louise said years ago It's running from self, addictions, running from self, fear, and not knowing how to love myself. Wow. And isn't that true? That couldn't be more true than me sitting here, that's for sure. Alcoholism. What's the use? Feeling guilty, inadequate, self rejection, same thing. And when somebody now says that these things are a disease, I take a bit of offense to that, even though I don't get offended. But that's because they haven't upgraded their information. There was a time when we thought those were diseases. Not quite. They don't fall into the category if you look up the word disease. They match dis-ease. That's what disease is. Dis-ease. Not comfortable, not safe, not feeling secure. Dis-ease. Good word. I love breaking words down. All right, well, let's see. Tomorrow we have the beautiful Jessica Hutton. And Jessica worked extensively in the town of Inuvik, which is a Canadian town in the Northwest Territories. And of course, Thursdays is always about specialized communities. And Jill is absent tomorrow. So I'll be talking with Jessica Hutton, my new friend, who worked extensively and works extensively within the Indigenous community as well. And she's got some great stories to share. You'll love her. She's delightful. And so we'll have her on tomorrow. And then on Friday, I'm interviewing, and we all have met the beautiful Sylvia Somerville. But Sylvia has some new materials and new ideas about her next books. And we're going to talk about her work in the world. And some of us already know about it, but I don't think very many people know about it. So that's why we're here, right? We just keep putting it out there so we can expand the vision for others. All right, well, I'm going to say goodbye for now. I have a meeting coming up, and thank you for watching. And all I want you to do is just know that you deserve to be well. And just say that every day. I deserve to be healthy. I deserve that. That's my birthright. Because the body can take care of itself if it's given everything it needs in most cases. Not all cases, but most cases. All right. So have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you all soon.